Welcome back. Good morning, Marita.
Hello. Hi. What are we speaking about today, my friend?
We are going to explore the topic of individuality versus interwoven, and talking about knowledge, wisdom, how they come together, how do they differentiate from each other, Western thinking versus indigenous, ancient thinking of that concept.
So much, right? Again, another topic we could talk about for the rest of our lives, but let's start small since these are snippets. And let's start with the imagery of seed versus facts. In indigenous ways of being cosmology, right? A lot of times when we talk about seeds of wisdom, right? Planting them, right? Having that reference point, we understand that that seed is only part of a process and that it will take a very long time for it to grow, and that the wisdom doesn't come when it becomes that tree. It's through the whole life cycle, and every part of that embodiment of that growth, of that seed sprouting, germinating, sprouting, rooting, growing, interacting with its environment. Its complete life and death cycle, its ability to be in community, all of that takes time. Versus and there's patience for that. There's understanding that that seed has a potential of all of that. Versus in Western thought, bite-sized pieces of information, right, are facts and figures. And people don't know how to weave those into a body of knowledge, right? If you work in corporate arenas, or if you even, watch the news, you'll see that the idea that facts and figures have, for some reason, if you repeat something enough, or loud enough, they think that then it becomes knowledge or that it becomes truth. And there's yet no reference to what it actually means or where that quote unquote information comes from. And so the West cannot hold in any of its programming, in any of its promises, the ability for any being to actually live a life of full potential, live a life of possibility in relation to itself, to community, and not just a human community, to the all. Because the West divides, right? You divide to conquer. And because people are overwhelmed these days, they need bite-sized information. And information, as I just said, are facts and figures. They aren't grounded. They're not seeds. They've taken a body of things and broken it down, and you can't plant that. It doesn't have the blueprint of that seed, that blueprint of growth, of patience, of perseverance, of having to water it, be watered to receive. That interaction in the way that the West teaches, in the way that the West consumes. No wonder where we are where we are, right? Because the imagery is different. The potential is different. And so I just kind of want to start with that imagery of the seed, right, versus facts or bite-sized information.
Yeah, I like that. And, it's one of the reasons that made me depart. I was a trained veterinarian, and I studied biology and biochemistry and the structure of biology, the structure of a leaf, a cell, the processes that goes on. And it can get very deep because it's very specialized, and we slice and we slice and we slice, right? So we go all the way from the tree and the cell, and then into the DNA. But what I quickly realized, it was missing a perspective where the disciplines, you can think medicine, surgery, biology, chemistry, pharmacology, were really interwoven in their understanding. So we would bring someone, and it's very much how a lot of the Western medical world works. You go to see a surgeon for this, or someone that specializes in eyes, someone who specializes in ears, and that can be very useful, right? If you have a problem in your eye, it's probably better to see an eye surgeon. But very often what people are saying is what's missing there is the view of the self, the whole person. And when they say that, they're not talking just about that. They're talking about the old way doctors were, that they would know not only the individual, but the whole family. They will know the grandfathers, the grandmothers. They will know what kind of illnesses were present in that family lineage. They will know how people live and eat, and they will know the land because they were from that land. They were from that place. Very much like a traditional doctor. And so what's coming up for me as you describe that seed, I'm thinking of the individuality of trees, right? An oak tree and a pine tree are extremely different. So there is individuality of wisdom and knowledge in that, but that individuality is coming from their essence, not from their mind. So I like to think of individuality as the individuality of the soul, that knowledge, that wisdom that comes from the soul, that is very individual. It's unique to that specific person, versus the individuality of knowledge that comes from the mind, that is disconnected from land, that is disconnected from body, that is often disconnected from community, collective benefits, health, wellness. So there is knowledge in the soul, the individual soul, individual knowledge, but that individual knowledge of the soul is interwoven with all the other souls, with the land, with where is this life going? Where is that earth birthing that individual, right? There is always information that are transferring between that souls and the physical world and the spirit world and the ancestors and all of that, where the individual knowledge of the mind that can go very deep, and we are very hungry for that somehow in our Western world. We have the Google search and we want to know more, and we have all of that, but none of that is grounded in the knowledge of the soul most of the time. And because it's coming from the mind, it has created this separation with the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to transform and even to act from that place without creating disconnection, separation, individuality, and separation as we know it today in the Western world. Where if you think of it in a traditional circle, I mean, you like me, we spend a lot of time with native ancient cultures. There is individuality. People are, unique. Some people are really good at singing. Some people are good at preparing medicine. Some people are good at hunting. Some people are good with the knowledge of the plants. But because this is coming from their soul, their purpose, that has been nurtured from day one, it is interwoven for the benefit of the community. So it's really interesting, because from afar, I could say, well, it's just individuals with different skills, like in the Western world. But the place where that individuality was born and developed and amplified changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because here, that's going to create more of that. And here in the belly, in the source of all, in the soul, that's going to create more of what the tree is experiencing, what the oak tree is experiencing in its essence, and yet it's so woven into the health and wellness of the forest, into the support of the animal of that forest and the mycelium and all the lives that are present there, in its beauty of uniqueness at the same time, and being so different from the next tree, right? And I always like to see it that way. Where is that knowledge, wisdom coming from, the depths of it, and is it based on something that is connected and interwoven?
I love that we're using this imagery of trees and forests. And thank you so much for the tree beings, for being here, for holding this root for us. And what strikes me, and I love that you talked about this idea of the essence, right? Having this individuality, right? And I think one of the struggles, right, of modern society is that there is no place for that essence.
Mm.
Right? We haven't created in Western society a place for that essence. You have to go and you've created hierarchies of having to claim it back, right? Claim that essence back, that soul back, and it has to be through a certain person, right? Or you have to win it back, or you have to act in a certain way. And so there's this displacement of the essence trying to find a home. And first, that essence, right, has to find a home in the body, right, in the body of that tree. And you, as a physical human being, a being that is what we call human. And so, I think in our curiosity and our idea of connection, unfortunately, in the West, it's always outside. It's always an outside thing reflecting back to you who you might be if you earn it. And in indigenous way, and in this knowledge of trees that we're speaking, knowledge is embodied, right? Wisdom is embodied. You must have a body. You must be in relationship to the whole of it, right? Not just one part, not just your mind, not just how your foot works, but all of it, right?
Mm.
I was remembering a conversation I was having once with an elder, and people were asking them about gut wisdom, right? I have this intuition. And they said, well, what's your gut saying? And they said this and this. And they said, do you even know your gut? And the person was like, what are you talking about? No, no, no. Do you know how it functions? Do you know your hunger levels? Do you know that if you eat something, it makes you bloat? Do you know how your small intestine and your large intestine work? Do you know the flora and the fauna and the forest of your gut?
Mm.
Right. And this person was like, I don't even, I don't even know. Knowing is that digestion of something outside coming inside and becoming a part of you,
Mm.
and knowing how the interaction is going to happen. And so I think it's so important to invite people, and as we continue with this imagery of, it's not just something outside that you're bringing inside to become a part of you, right? It's not just that mycelia that we're really curious about and how it connects things, but it's this first and then in relation, right? And it's whatever comes in comes out, right? Whatever comes in comes out. And so I feel like we're presenting to people today an opportunity to really sit with different imagery and ways of connection versus disconnection, of truth, knowledge, and wisdom. And I hope that maybe the next time you're in a forest, you don't enter it with your perception of knowing how it works. Ask it.
Mm.
Ask. Ask each of the different trees. Ask for permission to be there, to enter, right? Ask for that to come to you, and sit with it. And don't digest it through here, right? Take a moment, and if your curiosity gets satiated and you get excited, that's not the conclusion. It's just a seed. Seeds take time to grow, and enjoy the whole process of becoming that interdependent soul in a body that gets to express itself inside first, and then in relationship to the forest outside of it.
Mm. One of the last thing I want to share, and it's coming up with what you're sharing and what we talked about earlier, is we're such individualistic societies right now. We're very separated, but somehow we are made feel that we belong in it, that we are interwoven with each other because it's based on uniformity, on look-alike, right? If you wear a certain, outfit, and that goes for your color, your very often your religions, your sexual preferences, and how you identify. So there is some kind of expectation there that make you think that, oh yes, then this is interwoven, right? But interwoven not through the uniqueness of the individual, but from a blank statement about what that needs to look like. And it's very individualistic ultimately. It's very different than being interwoven from the perspective of the trees of the forest, or the more ancient way, where the potential of the uniqueness of that seed has blossomed, and individuals are truly in their power, radically often different from each other, but the belonging comes from that connection between the differences. And it's a very different kind of experience of community and belongingness and wellness and health than the one we might think is present when we are part of a country, or we're part of a group, or we're part of something that has nothing to do with the true essence of the individual. And I think that's really important to reflect on that and to see that, because it's easy then to see the other groups and the separation because of those statements and belief we have learned, but that has nothing to do with our essence. We truly who we are before we were taught who we were supposed to be.
I love
And
that.
none of that happened, right, in the natural world. There's none of that in the trees, the beings in the forest, or even in the animal world, right?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, explore that topic. I think it's really interesting about thinking about this duality and what it means to truly be in relation, in connection from that place that we just talked about.
Beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marita.
Should